recording, and now this is the time when we go through physics, USF, Grad Pro. So I'm going to start with PhD curriculum, okay? And then we'll take a quick look at master degree curriculum as well. So the first and probably one of the most important things that we're going to be coming back every now and then is to take a look at this roadmap to success. So what is the importance of this one? It tells you exactly what we expect to happen to you as you progress through our program. So the first year, many of you have already completed, many of you are completing the first year, but we know what needs to happen here. This is where typically our students take their 4 required courses. We only require you to take 4 courses. Who can remind me how many courses in total do we require you to take? Or do we expect you to take? 10 courses, right? Out of this 10, we have 4 core courses, and typically students do complete them in the first year. In addition to that, because at any given time, you're required to take 3 courses per semester. Yes, regardless of what these courses are, at any given time, in any semester, even summer semester, you're required to take 3 courses. So you've taken 3 courses, first year students, so 2 of them per semester were required courses and 1 was elective. Chances are that as we're finishing with the spring semester, the first year student probably completing the 6 courses already. Yes, naturally that leaves you 4 more courses to complete in the next or in the coming years, right? Remember, at any given time, you have to take 3 courses, right? So we are looking for you to complete 4 courses in the second year. How you're going to distribute it, it's up to you. For example, in the coming fall semester, you can decide to take 3 classes, and then you will have 1 more class to take in the spring, but the remaining 2 courses in the spring, I don't know if I can make this a little diagram here, but if we are looking for your second year, the standard progression. So I have fall and I have spring. For example, what you can do, you can take 3 classes here, but then you're going to take just 1 regular class here. What are going to be the 2 other courses?
Directed research.
Directed research. Does that make sense? It's up to you. Or typically what students do, they do 2 classes here, plus 1 course of directed research. And the same thing happens here. Do you have to do it in this way? Absolutely not. So in the second year, perhaps I kind of jumped in the second year, but let me complete with the second year. In the second year, this is when you already have your mentor, and mentor will be playing a very important role in deciding your progression in the program. So for example, I'm going to give an example of student in biophysics. In the coming fall, and I think even in the coming spring, we're looking at the fall 2024 and spring 2025, we are not going to offer a course in biophysics because a course in biophysics will be offered every other year, right? So if you are a student who is going to specialize in biophysics, you may decide to wait until that course is actually offered. Right? You can still do that. What's going to happen here? You will probably be taking 1 regular class and 2 classes of directed research. That is also perfectly fine. So sometimes, that is what will work best for you. So we do give you this freedom. But then remember that if you are in the second year, you will always have to discuss your course selection with your advisors. It's very, very important. Does that make sense? So now I'm going to come back to the first year because in the first year, many important things are happening. So you are taking your courses, but then what will happen at the end of this semester for the first year student? What is that important milestone that everyone will have to complete at the end of the first year?
Joining a
Club. And once again, I'm going to reiterate that your research is going to be a very big focus of your graduate program. Not the only focus, because sometimes we do have this, I do hear these views from students. Oh, why do I even have to take courses? They're not really directly relevant to my research. I can give you so many reasons why you have to take courses, and hopefully we'll come to this point today. But yes, research is going to be very, very important, but your classes are also quite important. Coming back to the first year, in the end of this semester, many of you are going to decide on the lab that you will choose, right? So once you decide on the lab that you will join, what's going to happen during this time? You're only going to sign up for the directed research with the lab that you join for the summer. We still require that to be 3 courses. That's going to be directed research. As you join the lab, remember what's going to happen. You're going to have a discussion with your potential mentor. Once your potential mentor says, yes, it's okay for you to try marketing in the summer, and you feel comfortable doing that, this is when I will sign your form that you are joining directed research with that particular professor. Does that make sense? So that is something that will happen at the end of the semester. You'll decide on the lab, and you have discussion with your potential mentor, and I will sign on that form. So these will be the classes that you take in the summer. And this is actually excellent because you don't have to take any regular classes in the summer. So whatever time you have, you can devote it entirely to your research. And this is your opportunity to test the group that you're thinking about joining, and for your mentor to see whether you are a good fit to the group. Remember, there is no bad students. There is no bad mentors. It's all about finding the right fit, right? Okay, so any questions about what happens in the first year? So the typical expectation for you to complete 6 of the courses that we expect out of 10 that you need to satisfy the degree requirement and join a lab. Yes. So now I want to come back to the 10 courses that you need to complete to satisfy the requirement. This is very important. Many students miss that point. So 10 courses to satisfy the requirement. Only one of them can be outside the department. You want to take more courses outside the department, that's perfectly fine, but they will not serve to satisfy your requirement. And there is a reason for that, because remember, you will be graduating with PhD in applied physics. You will not be graduating with PhD in chemistry or, electrical engineering. So your coursework must satisfy the requirements so that you are ready to be a PhD in physics. Any other courses you can take, of course, you're very encouraged and welcome to take that, but only one outside the department will satisfy the degree requirement. Yes.
How does funding work for those courses that are outside?
Provide all the funding. Remember that as long as you are within our program, you are in good academic standing. And for graduate students, good academic standing is understood slightly different from the concept of undergraduate students. If you're undergraduate students, good academic standing means that, your GPA is where it needs to be, right? For graduate students, it's both your GPA as well as success in research. Let's say, and unfortunately, we did have cases like that. Let's say you hop from lab to lab and you cannot find home anywhere. That is not the case of good academic standing. Although your GPA can be great, we are not able to find you lab, or you're not able to find something that fits your research interest here. That is not good academic standing. But as long as you are in good academic standing defined like that, you are making progress in our program, we will always cover your courses. Because this is another misconception that many students have. Even if you do entirely, you finish your coursework, you work only entirely on your research, you're still technically taking classes, which will be directed research classes or dissertation classes or some other form of classes. So for us, we're still paying that tuition or waiving that tuition. So it doesn't matter if we're waiving it for a regular class or for, something that you take outside the department or something that you use towards your directed research. It's always 3 classes, no matter what. So finding tuition is not going to be a problem. And I do encourage you to take advantage of that. Always take a look at what other departments are offering. Because chances are that they may offer some new elective that that you may want to take. So that's a good thing. But only one will serve to satisfy your degree requirement. There is a very recent change. That change will only apply to the students that joined spring 2024 and onward. But that recent change for those students who joined spring 2024 and forward, you can only take one cross-listed course to satisfy your degree requirement. Okay? Do we know what is cross-listed course? Cross-listed course is the course which is offered which we allow both undergraduate and graduate students to take. So typically it will be 5,000 level course. It's going to be cross-listed 5,000 and 4,000 level course. right? So if the course is cross-listed, if you're not sure, you always check with Mike. Is this course cross-listed? But it should appear somewhere in the description that this is cross. So for the students who joined in the spring and onward, only one cross-listed course will serve towards degree satisfaction. Sometimes we may be offering some cross-listed course that is very unique and you want to target. Of course, you take it, just remember that it may not serve to satisfy your degree requirement. Again, we don't want to preclude or stop you from taking courses because this is actually a good thing. But we need to make sure that your degree meets all the standards that are imposed in this country for PhD in physics. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes.
Yeah, so when you take these extra courses beyond the program, is there any option, like say I'm like interested in something, but I don't necessarily like the idea of risking, my great GPA by doing that,
And here's different ways to address that. The most simple way is when you just talk to a professor and you ask, can I audit them? I never liked that option because I've seen it so many times, even with excellent students in my group. They just want to sit in the course, but then you don't do homework, you don't do examination. And 80% of your knowledge gaining and learning happens during the homework and during preparation for examination. So typically you will just waste your time, you will not benefit. The other remedy that we use in the department, let's say you want to take course, let's say with me and you already satisfy degree requirement. You come to the professor and you say, this is my situation, I don't want to risk my GPA, what would be the possible options? What I typically do, I have that satisfactory and unsatisfactory option for students in that situation who already completed their coursework, they don't want to risk their GPA. Chances are that the other professor will do the same thing because we want our students to succeed, we want our students to learn. Why would we not? We don't care to fail you or anything, right? Why would we not do something like that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So once again, first year, do we have any questions about what we need to happen in the first year? Remember, you're joining your lab for the summer. You're going to try the lab for the summer. Let's say your advisor kicks you out. I'm making it too dramatic. It never works that way. So what are you going to do next?
Do you?
That's very, very reasonable thing to do. You're going to talk to me. But then also remember from the lab rotation course, you have your choice number 1, you have choice number 2, you do come and talk to me. And you kind of, we have this conversation because I want to know what went wrong so that, we kind of try to avoid the same things in the future, right? But at the same time, this is the good time for you to go and talk to your choice number 2. And as you do that, you're being honest that, I've tried that group, but I think that these are the things that didn't work, right? So you be very candid, very, very honest. You're going to try the second group in the fall, right? So what happens if the second group kicks you out or you think that, second group is actually even worse than the first one? So what's going to happen next?
Get a master's.
If you're lucky. Because you see, guys, unfortunately, there is that little issue of financial support. Okay? Remember that one of our primary goals here in the department is to conduct research, right? And as we conduct research, we rely on our excellent graduate students to help us in that endeavor. Okay? And this is the reason for us to provide you funding either TA or RA, because university would not allow us to hire TA who is not student at USF, because this is the investment that USF makes in order to make progress in research and things like that, right? So if you come from street and say, I want to be TA, USF will not allow us to offer that, right? So we are doing that because we value you and we need you to help us with our research. Now think about it. It's already clear after the second try that you are not going to make it in research in our department. Not in research generally, it's just our department is not a great fit for you, right? How can we keep investing money and provide you financial support for the remaining spring semester? So that you can complete with master, because to complete master degree requirement typically takes 2 years, right? It depends. You can always have a choice that, we have students like that when you decide to pay, for you the tuition, because it makes sense for you. You're so short of graduating, right? That, that it makes sense. You can do that. It gets a little bit more trickier with international students, but we still can do that. Occasionally, if we're in a situation that we're short of TAs, we're actually short of people who we need to teach, labs, then of course we'll be happy to offer that position to you. But my point is that at the end of the fall semester, you are dropped to the master track. Financial support is not guaranteed. We'll try everything that we can, but if we don't have availability, we just can't offer you financial support. Right? Does it make sense? Okay. All right, so that is why, you have to be very, you have to put a good thought into deciding which groups that you want to join. My opinion is always, you are PhD students. You came here for a right reason, right? You came here because you love to do research, you love to learn, you enjoy this environment. So my opinion is always that you can make any opportunity work. It shouldn't be, you shouldn't think about it, oh my God, if I don't feel super excited the moment I wake up in the morning and the moment I leave my lab, at midnight, it's not working for me. It's not always like that. And 80% of time you'll be frustrated, you'll be unhappy, you'll be not necessarily depressed, but things will not go the way you want them to go. But chances are that you can make any opportunity work. You have to believe in yourself. Okay. With that, understanding, with that commitment, I'm pretty sure that giving you two choices of the groups, at least one of them is going to be great for you. And to be honest, we didn't have that many cases when students were unhappy with their first choice and unhappy with the second choice. When we did have that happening, it was very clear that that student career path is probably better suited with a master's degree. Yeah. All right. Yes.
What is the average graduation time for a PhD physics?
Okay, so the nationwide average graduation time is 6.5 years. 6.5 years, yes.
Really?
This is average nationwide in the US. For us, it's been 5.5. We were 1 year ahead of national average for quite some time. I still need to run the latest statistics, but this is what it is. We do like when our students graduate on time. 5 years is that perfect, time for you to graduate. Because, it's not always that students like a good wine, right? So you let them share and it gets better. Sometimes, they become a perishable product. Right?
You should
So
diagram 5 so 6 years.
Well, you see, we want to be flexible, right? And I can understand that many of my colleagues, they will say, look, the nature of research that we do, we just have to have that extra time. And I can fully understand, because who are we as a program to make decisions for the particular research group, right? So things like that do happen. And, we do have some students who graduate within 6 years and they're still very successful. But yet, that being said, try to keep that 5 years as a guidepost for you. Try to be there in 5 years. But then, of course, it's also up to your mentor. Yes.
So, how abnormal is it for people to, and like what in your experience is going on when people graduate like super early? Because like Noah just got his PhD and he's in the group I'm in, and he was here I think for like 3 years total is what they said. 2.5 years.
3.5.
3.5. Oh, he was here for 3.5 years, and he's already he just successfully defended his candidacy.
He's finishing, in the summer, he's going to be finishing his 4th year.
Okay. But yeah, he's just finished his, so in your experience, what is going on with, is it because they pick a certain time?
I did mine in 3 years, but.
He's still impressive. So like, if the average is like 5.5, what in your.
Remember, average is just an average. And to this audience, you guys know what average means, especially when the numbers are not millions, but the numbers are hundreds, right? These are the numbers here, right? So average are just average. Noah has been an exceptional student. I remember I recruited Noah and we got the USF fellowship for him, which was, I think the same one that Bryson has. It's Graduate Student Success Fellowship. So he received that fellowship and, we recruited him as a very bright student, very promising student, and he even exceeded our expectation. He became Smart DoD Fellow, which is extremely prestigious. He is just an outstanding, very committed student. And I think that is, the consequence of that in his case. He just, is very committed, very motivated. So I think in his case, this is just recognition of the fact that, he is very, very focused student. And, because he got DoD Smart Fellow, so fellowship, so now he already has his job lined up for him, right? So there's no point for him to linger. He has great things awaiting for him.
He has like specific things that he's like, for instance, Derek in Dr. Wanachi's lab, he's amazing. He helps out almost every lab in the department, and he's been here for longer than Noah and
Mhm.
all that good stuff. So there's probably like specific things that you have to do if you really want the early time, like not just do well, right?
Well, you see, I cannot comment on those specific cases, but if we want to classify, there's nothing absolute in this world, right? But if we want to classify students, we can very broadly. We can have two groups. We can have self-motivated students and students who need motivation. Both of them can be very successful. There is nothing wrong to be in one group or another. But I think those students who are very self-motivated, those are also the students who may come to the finish line a little bit earlier, right? But then, even more than that, it depends on your research program. Project, right? Because some research, for example, for Derek's case, he was helping us with our measurements on hybrid perovskites, which very few groups in the world can accomplish. It was so difficult. It just, took a lot of his time. Things like that could happen. So it will depend greatly on your particular project, but then it's very, very important to have good communication with your research advisor. You can say after some time when you already established your progress, right, you already kind of know your value and you're kind of familiar with the project, you can say, look, I was actually thinking if I could graduate within 5 years. Do you think it's possible? I cannot think of any advisor saying, you know what, it's completely impossible. But then you communicate and you start working together on making this goal become a reality, right? So you can say, what do I need to do to make that happen? How should I work? What should be my milestones? Where I should be? But if you just sit there, I don't want to sound very mean, but if you just sit there enjoying different projects that are really fun, and then 5 years after that, oh, you know what, I actually want to graduate, that's going to be harder, right? Because there are certain milestones that you have to complete before you graduate. Okay, all right. So second year, there is an important milestone that you have right here that has to at the end of the second year. This is credential check. Credential check has two. So first of all, at this point, we already expect you to complete majority of your coursework. So we know exactly that you're not a failure in terms of the academics. So you see, we cannot have failures in terms of academics. Even students who are extremely brilliant in research, but if they cannot complete coursework, they cannot be PhD in physics, right? Because what does PhD in physics mean? Some people think, oh, you know what, I'm so great in research. Why are you making me taking these courses? If you're great in the lab, if you're spectacular in the lab, you are lab technician. You're not PhD in physics. PhD in physics is the person who is very well educated, who is knowledgeable, who has problem-solving skills, who is able, because you see right now you're great in your lab. You're probably running your lab, right? Chances are. You're going to graduate. Do you think you're going to have the same lab? Do you think you're going to do exactly the same problem? Problems I was working on 20 years ago, nobody cares about them right now, right? You're going to be doing something different. And if you were just perfectly trained for the particular project, you will not be able to do something different. And then your career becomes failure. How can I switch from one research area to another research area? How can I switch from one research group to another research group? This is when my background, this is when my foundation will matter, because I have very strong education in physics. I can take up on any area, invest my time because I know how to solve problems, and then be successful in that area. So coursework is something that will differentiate just the lab technician from PhD in physics. Another point, you will be graduating with PhD in physics. You can become university professor. You become university professor, they send you teaching assignment. Here, you're teaching quantum mechanics. You know what? I really didn't care about quantum mechanics because I was doing research in biophysics. Why would I even care about quantum mechanics, right? This is what PhD in physics means. You can become university professor. You can become big shot in industry who will decide on the directions where your company has to go. I always tell that story. Before I got this offer, I got an offer from General Electrics. And, I come there and I say, oh my God, how can I do? They make me an offer, offer me big money, right? How can I do that? I don't know anything about what you guys do. And the guy says, you know what? You know quantum mechanics. You can learn. We need your vision because you're going to be the person who will determine the vision for that particular department. You will be doing reading. You will be identifying those directions that that particular department has to pursue, right? And that comes from your foundation. That comes from your background, not from a very polished technical skill that you have in your lab, okay? All right, so credential check. I was coming to the point that credential check, it consists of two parts. The coursework, this is when I got started on the coursework, right? So we want to make sure that you're not failing your coursework. We do expect you to complete 80 to 90% of your coursework. If you're missing one or two courses, that may be fine. You're going to give me like, brief justification. I'm waiting for that biophysics course, which is not offered in the next year. That is fine. That's completely fine. But majority of your coursework, including core courses, must be completed so that we know that, it's just a matter of time for you basically completing the coursework, right? The second part of your credential check is consists of two parts. But, you have this resource. You can always go back to this resource and check. So where is our qualifying examination, right? So there's the credential check. So you're going to go to that document and you're going to read that document. This is very straightforward. In discussion with your research mentor, and remember, as you finish your second year, you already spent like a year in the lab, right? So in discussion with your mentor, you're going to pick 3 review articles. Okay, so your mentor will help you decide. He will probably say, just pick any 3, but then he say, what, this is not a really good one for us. So the idea behind those 3 reviews paper that you can help you to establish foundation in the research that you're going to do. Very straightforward. So you pick this 3 research papers, you read these papers, you don't have to fully understand, right? Because you're just, beginning your research career. You don't have to fully understand, but those things that you understand that make sense to you, you're going to summarize that in a 10-page document. The only requirement is that this 10-page document, it's not copy paste. That is information that makes sense to you. I usually say that this is something that you can teach another student. Does that make sense? So these 10-page documents, first your advisor will take a look at that and the advisor will say, what looks good. Then at that point, you form your committee. I usually suggest to have 4 committee members. 3 is requirement. I usually suggest to have 4 committee members because I was myself in the situation when on a particular day committee member got sick and then you cannot run defense because you're 1 member short, right? So having 1 extra committee member is very useful. So you're going to compose your committee. Do we know how to pick people for the committee? So to pick people for the committee, already from the introduction to research class, you already know who works on what areas, right? You do want to pick someone whose research interests are somewhat relevant to what you do. It could be computational, it could be experimental person. And this is actually when you have that kind of cross communication, that is the best because you get to learn from different perspectives, right? But it's not a bad idea to have someone who is, kind of relevant to the research that you do. So these are good people to pick. Other good people to pick is just professors from your classes. That could be another, a set of people to pick. So you're going to form your committee and then your document, your written document goes to the committee. Committee says it's okay to proceed to the oral part of the examination. Oral part of the examination is when you make presentation on that document that you composed and you present it in front of the committee. Committee is going to ask you questions, but it's not going to be in-depth research questions about, the topics that you choose. Committee will be looking at how well you are able to connect the fundamental research that you gained from your classes to the modern research, to the research that is going on. So for example, what may happen, you may be explaining some effect and then committee will ask you a question and you want to say, oh, you know what, these are actually eigenvalues of the polyhamiltonian, right? So that way committee knows, yes, this guy understands, the fundamentals and able to relate to the research, particular research concept. Does that make sense? So when you do that oral presentation, the committee will be evaluating the background that you gained from the coursework and how applicable you can make it to research, because oftentimes graduate students and even faculty, they struggle in research. They have wonderful background. They have GPA 4.0, they excellent in classes, but then there's that failure to connect the things that you learn in classes to things that are happening in research. At no point of time they should be disconnected. There is always connection, okay? And part of that credential check, we will be looking for your ability to make that connection. The purpose of that credential check is to test whether the student has the potential to become PhD. Does that make sense? And that is why we take into account both performance in classes, as well as your potential for research, as your ability to grasp the concepts, connect them to fundamental knowledge. Does that make sense? Okay, so then committee will, ask questions and all that, and then it's either pass or fail. If you fail, you will be given one more chance. I cannot imagine cases when the students fail because you will be working with your advisors and things like that. It's not that you will come unprepared. I hope so. But if you do fail, there will be one more chance for you to pass, right? If you fail second time, there's no chance, right? And this is when you graduate with master.
You've never seen somebody fail.
Well, so here's the thing. This is our new qualifying procedure, which has only been in place for 2 years. So during those 2 years, we haven't seen cases like that. But again, it's only a 2 years. Yes,
This write-up, are you allowed to send it to your vision and stuff?
this is what we encourage students to do. There will be cases when your mentor say, you know what, I'm in the middle of 3 proposal submissions and I don't have time. Well, I cannot control it, and I don't want to control everyone. Different research groups will have slightly different culture and expectations. But typically, it's not a good idea. It's not a bad idea to have your mentor to review it and provide the feedback, right? Okay, so there was another important question that came in that context, but okay. Yes. Oh, okay. Now I remember. So we, as a program, we are keeping an eye on you. If you finished your second year and you are not completing your credential check, we are not going to be happy. And it's going to go in the same, how do I say that? Category is not the right way to say that, but basically, we don't believe that you're making the progress that you should be making, right? And then when it does come to financial support, if you are in severe violation of our requirement, how can we even be confident that you're doing and research what you're supposed to be doing, that you're progressing at the rate that you're supposed to be progressing, right? So this is when you kind of, you may not have the highest priority for your financial support. You don't want to be in that situation because these exams that we're discussing, this is our way of telling whether the student is making the right progression or the student is in the right direction towards the degree, because you cannot come to the program and linger here for 10 years only because you like it, right? So we need to make sure that things are happening. And the first time this or the second time the things may not be happening is going to be right here. If the things are not happening, we're going to tell you do that in the summer. If the things are still not happening in the summer, we're going to be very upset. Right? And you don't want that to happen because let's say if we're short on TA lines or short on funding, occasionally it doesn't happen very often, but USF goes through this budget cuts and things like that. You don't want to be in the situation. This is very straightforward. You can all do that. So just make sure that you make that progression. And then there is also an issue of different fellowships that you can apply with, right? If you apply for fellowship, you're 10 years in the program, you didn't pass any exam, you're not going to get anything, right? So you don't want to be that. So this is something that's going to happen to you at the end of the second year. Do we have any questions here?
Between your summary to your committee and the oral presentation, what's the time frame between those?
It's entirely up to you. We don't even make any suggestions. It's, between you, your advisor, and your committee. My only recommendation here, please remember that any meeting that you want to set up with your committee, it's not going to be smooth because people have very busy schedules and you will have 4 people on your committee. It's not going to be easy to find the time that works for everyone. So make sure that you schedule any examinations ahead of time. Make sure that you're professional. Let's say if your oral examination is scheduled for certain day, the committee needs to have your written documents 2 weeks ahead of time. You cannot send the committee the written document the night before and expect committee to stop everything and move document. This is unpolite. This is unrealistic. I'm on the committee for a chemistry student and they're canceling their kind of credential check for the second time for the same student because he fails to send his written document 2 weeks in advance. Okay, so make sure whatever communication you send to the committee, don't expect them to stop everything and just work on that. Okay, give them reasonable time frame. Any other questions about credentials check? So once again, credential check is 2 parts. Basically, your coursework, which we expect to be completed 80 to 90%. right? GPA, you always have to maintain above 3.0. That is the only requirement. And that, written and oral part examination. Does it make sense? Okay. All right. So now you are moving towards your third year. And this is when the chances are that you completed your coursework. You're moving towards fully research mode. You're still taking your 3 courses, which will probably be directed research. You get to distress a little bit from the past work. You get to enjoy your research a little bit more. But this is also where the expectations go higher in research, right? And this is up to you. You have to be extremely self-motivated. You're going to be talking to your advisor. You're going to be coming to the lab, whatever it takes. You want to turn yourself into success in research, because without success in research, you're going to be failure as PhD student. Okay. All right. So now several things will still need to happen. Starting from your third year and onward, it's very flexible, but that needs to be accomplished. Your industrial or clinical for medical physics students, your industrial practicum has to be accomplished. And here's the, it's not a tricky thing, but something that, students often miss. The way industrial practicum is encoded, you have to take it as a course. You don't want to be in the situation that, let's say, you expect to graduate this summer. You found your industrial practicum site. It's only going to take you 2 weeks, but because you did not request that the semester that you are finishing, you don't have that course taken as part of your curriculum, and you're not able to graduate. I don't think that I made that very clear. But here's the thing. Let's say you want to take industrial practicum the coming summer. Yes, what you need to do, you need to have that paperwork, which is very, very straightforward. You have that document right there. You need that paperwork finalized this spring semester. So when you register for your summer courses, one of them is going to be industrial practicum. It's actually the state of Florida that will not allow us to graduate the student without having that industrial practicum course. Okay, so keep in mind, keep your eyes on that. Don't do that in the last minute, because it can mess up your plan for the graduation. Okay, so it has to be as a class. Doesn't matter when you take, but you've kind of finalized that semester before so that you can take that as a class.
How does funding for that work?
Yes. So industrial practicum would do want students to take initiative, right? So finding there are many opportunities in this country, so you just go and look for those opportunities. I know that at least at some point our students, they had a database of industrial practicum sites. You can talk to each other, see, where your classmates went for industrial practicum. So we do expect you to take initiative. There are a lot of opportunities, but don't expect that the first one you apply will come through, right? So it will take some perseverance, and sometimes we say it's almost like job application kind of thing, right? So you're gonna try, and you're gonna get some rejections. Hopefully, you'll get some acceptance. It's also a very good idea to discuss it with your mentor, because chances are that the mentor will have good suggestions. Industrial practicum site, it can be pretty much anything but research university. Industry, corporate world, national labs are all good examples, right? But not research university. So you want to be proactive. You want to keep thinking about it. When am I going to do my industrial practicum? Do I give myself enough time to find the opportunities, because they may not come along? Now, let's say you found an opportunity, but that opportunity doesn't come with funding. Oftentimes, when you find the opportunity, it already comes with funding, right? But let's say it doesn't come with funding. We do have some funds. Unfortunately, they're limited, like everything in life, right? And they kind of I think technically they're tied to stock, performance and things like that. I don't know all the details, but in a given year, we can have more or less funding, right? So that will also kind of affect how far you can take it. We typically will give you a limit to 2,000 to 3,000, depending on where we stand. Yes, we do have partial funding, but this is again, when you kind of want to be ahead of time, you're going to tell us, look, this is when I plan to do that. We check that we have funding, and then we'll okay funding. Okay, but many opportunities will come with the funding already.
It's a minimum of 2 weeks, correct?
It's a minimum of 2 weeks, yes. But there is no maximum, and it's entirely up to you. My suggestion is that do make that useful. Don't make it something that just like a checkbox. Do take advantage of that. It's a very good thing. It's your opportunity to go out there, see things, and build your network, build your connections, maybe even get a job offer. Okay, so put some thinking into it. You can even start applying now. But put some thinking into it. Kind of plan when you want to do that. Discuss with your advisor. And remember, you must take that as a course. Okay, so that will need a little bit of planning. Okay, so now you are enjoying your year 3, your year 4. This is when you start thinking about your candidacy. Candidacy is a major examination. But what's happening at the time of candidacy, you actually submit your proposal to your committee. And the aim of the proposal, this is what I'm going to do for my PhD thesis. Okay, this is very important because first of all, it's a measure of your creativity. It's a measure of your potential to be turned into independent researcher. And as we graduate you, we do expect you to be independent researcher, right? Then committee is going to evaluate the proposal. Committee may say, you know what, it was done 50 years ago. Or the committee may say, you know what, it doesn't make any sense. It's of no value or it's completely wrong, right? So you will have that, discussion with the committee. Committee will provide the feedback. And then if the committee okays your proposal, you become PhD candidate, okay? So we do want it to happen by the end of the 4th year. So that is a good time frame to be, because remember, from the moment you submit your proposal, you still need time to make that proposal happen, right? So as you come to that line, chances already that you may already have some papers, you've already done quite a bit of research, you're already very well oriented in the research area, right? So that you can write a proposal, because right now you wouldn't be able to write a proposal, you don't know anything about your research area, right? So, but at that point, you're already educated, but still just, making your proposal will take you some time. So don't delay candidacy exam. So there's another thing, another pitfall that some students encounter. See how your degree requirement looks like. So we discussed 10 courses that you need to have here. So you see, industrial practicum, it's equivalent of 1 course. Yes, that has to happen. So other hours are not that important, but this is important. You see, this is dissertation research. So it's really coded in the system as dissertation hours. Okay, so you can only take dissertation hours after you become PhD candidate. So first you pass PhD candidacy, and only if you pass PhD candidacy, only then you can take your dissertation hours. So for example, if I pass my candidacy right now in the spring semester, I can start taking my dissertation hours in the summer and onward. Does that make sense? So do the math for me. 24 credit hours, how many courses is it? 8?
Yeah, 83 credit hour.
So we are looking at 8 courses of dissertation hours. You take 3 courses per semester. It translates into how many semesters? 3 semesters. It's 1 year, right? There is a little workaround. Out of this 8 or out of 24 credit hours, we allow 12, actually not, I think it's the state of Florida. Out of 24 hours, 12 can be converted from your directed research. Does that make sense? That will reduce that to 4 courses. These cannot be reduced. This have to be 4 courses. 4 courses, taking 3 courses per semester. This is a minimum of 2 semesters. So don't think if I'm passing my candidacy right now in the spring, I will be able to graduate in the summer. That's not going to happen. This is not a requirement that we have any control. This is controlled by the state. Okay, so make sure that you pass your candidacy in time, so you have plenty of time to complete this dissertation hours, so you don't run into issues like that. Does that make sense? All right, so now we talked about industrial practicum, we talked about candidacy, and after all this satisfied, you satisfied industrial practicum requirement, you satisfied your dissertation hours, here we are at the finish line. What happens at the finish line? You defend your thesis, right? And again, this is very, very important. You already will have your committee, of course. Give yourself good time to write dissertation, because chances are that you will not be super experienced with writing, right? Even after 5 years. So give yourself plenty of time. Don't do that don't do that in 2 years. Give your committee plenty of time to read through the document. Make your presentation extremely clear, extremely appealing, extremely impressive, and then you'll have no problem with, you know, making that to that last finish line. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so do we have any questions?
Do you typically submit your thesis for publication prior to doing your defense?
I'll answer that question. The chances are most of the theses that are happening right now, you will be getting your papers as you go. Like, you know, in the past, it was like, you know, one dissertation becomes one publication. Right now, it's not like that. It's like, you know, part. So typically you will be publishing as you go. And that is actually an excellent way to do, because let's say for some of my students, let's say they have 4 or 5 publications by the time they graduate, and then it becomes much easier for them because they just kind of, you know, restructure and rearrange that to serve one goal or one objective, or you know, that, how do I say that, the main objective of your thesis, right? So there is really no connection with your publication, a schedule, and your thesis. It's not a bad idea to have publications as you go, because that will help you to write your thesis. Now, the document itself, your thesis will be published by USF. Okay, so for example, as you work on that, you can go to the records of previous PhD students, especially in your lab. It's always publicly available. You can take a look at what we've done. Another thing that I want to briefly mention. So remember all these examinations, credential check, candidacy, defenses. We constantly have that in the department. Make sure that you attend at least few of them. So you see how that happens. What do students do? Where do they struggle? You know, it's just a good idea to take a look at those things before you go for your own way. Yes?
Can you talk a little bit about like it would be like pretty poor taste to go into your defense, even if everything's perfect, if you don't have anything lined up afterwards, job wise?
I think this is common sense.
Yeah, so.
No, in your last
when you
year,
start-
in
okay.
your last year, this is when you start looking for a job, right? And it's a very good idea to have your job offer as you graduate. And this is what happens to most of the students. In fact, some students will even schedule, especially international students, they will even schedule their graduation so that, you know, it works well with their start day for the position. But again, like everything, it will take some time, right? So don't do that. Like, you know, I'm going to graduate in 1 month. I'm going to start looking for a job right now, right? So you probably want to be a little bit ahead of time also. That. Yes? Yes.
For the proposal for the candidacy, how is that layout similar or dissimilar for the proposal for the credential check?
It's very, very dissimilar. So once again, credential is when you review someone else's work. Your PhD proposal is what you are proposing to do to become PhD person. PhD.
Well, I was more talking about like the length and
Oh, you know what? This one, we don't even have to guess, because this is again your resource that you can always go to. And here you will find these guidelines, okay? So just always go back to that website and you will always find, you know, these guidelines. So here's the candidacy exams.
all right, I see.
So always go to that webpage, okay? And you can find all that information. So as a program, we will review your performance every year. If you fail to pass some of these, you know, milestones, we're going to be in touch with you. But as a student, it's also a good idea for you to review this progress and check, am I doing the right thing? Am I staying on track? So like, you know, make it a habit every year. See, am I, you know, completing what I should be completing, right? And then you go back. So for example, it's the time for me to do the candidacy. I'm going to go back to the document. I'm going to review. I'm going to have discussion with my mentor, because remember, your mentors are always, you know, or often very busy too, right? You cannot say, oh, you know what, I decided to do my candidacy and I'm going to do that a week from now. That's not going to work, right? So you need to give yourself some time. You need to give your mentor some time, because candidacy proposal, definitely your mentor will want to take a look at that. Does it make sense? So the other important thing that I want to mention quickly. So keep an eye on the opportunities that we have here. Let me see, special programs. I'd like to keep everything on the website, so it's not in different resources. You can always go to the website. But here's a few opportunities that we have. For example, typically in the summer, we have some department fellowships, which we encourage students to apply. In this year, I think we gave 7 fellowships, and basically what it does, it gives you like, you know, financial support to work in the summer. You don't have to do the teaching, right? So it's a fellowship that you can focus entirely on the research. So that's going to be that will happen every summer. In the spring, you apply for those opportunities. And this is where your, progress in the program will matter, because depending on how many applications we receive, let's say this year, I think we received 15 applications. We had to pick 7 best of them, right? And you all are good students. We really think that you're doing a great job, but somehow we have to pick 7 out of 50, right? How we're going to pick. And this is when things like that will matter. The student was supposed to pass candidates at this point, but the student didn't. Not good, right? Or let's say a student is already in the 6th year and he hasn't published a single paper. Not good, right? So we want you to kind of, be where you need to be at that point. So make sure I will be sending this announcement, but in the spring, this is when you're looking to apply for these fellowships. In addition to that, another thing to keep an eye on, Office of Graduate Studies, it has their own opportunities for this and fellowships. So you're going to take a look at that. Some of them by nomination, for incoming students, but some of them, for example, dissertation completion fellowship, we have some winners in this audience, right? Yeah. So we have Paul here. Congratulations to him. So he got this fellowship to complete his dissertation. So then what else? Signature research doctoral fellowship. So we have Pawan. I don't know, Pawan, maybe he is online. So he is recipient of this one. So it's a good opportunity, especially as you're finishing your thesis. You probably don't want to be too focused on the teaching because it does take time, right? So you apply for one of those fellowships and focus entirely on your writing. So make sure to take advantage of those. So there are some additional ones. And then there are, of course, national fellowships and scholarships. So these are very good things to apply. We already heard from Dr. Basil last time. So this is one of the big ones. Every funding agency will offer their own version of that fellowship. So it's a good idea to keep an eye on those also. All right. So now, let me come back one last time, just making sure. So we discussed in detail this thing. Let me see if I'm missing anything. So we discussed this, we discussed this. We discussed this. Qualifying, discuss dissertation, discuss roadmap. And once again, this is the resource that you will keep going. So for example, here you want credential certification form, you have it here. You want industrial practical application, you have it here. You have everything for you right there. Keep an eye on this. Make sure that you are completing your milestones. Does that make sense? Do we have any questions? It's a pity because, we're running out of time. I wanted to give you a quiz on those milestones. But as usual, I think I ran out of time. Okay, so do we have any questions? So now you have this resource, right? I'm also going to post this recording of this meeting also somewhere there. So you have these resources. If you go through the resources and you still have questions that you cannot find answer anywhere, then we can have discussion. Okay? All right, guys. So last time, no questions, nothing at all. Is it clear everything that needs to happen and when it needs to happen? All right. So then, thank you for your time and make sure that you don't go on red with us. You don't hear from me saying, why did you not pass this? Or, you're too late.
Hope that you didn't do well.